Going live. Five, four, three, two. I think we're live. The first 10 seconds are always awkward.
Hmm.
Let's do the double check. It appears to be live. I see the little button popping up.
Oh, there it is. Michael Fisher tagged you in a video.
There we go. Cool. So we are officially live.
Can I share this
Welcome
to my personal timeline, or will it not show up because it's in the group?
It may not show up because it's in the group, but I'll get you a recording you can upload.
Cool.
Shortly or a little bit later this afternoon.
All right. Cool.
So, first off, appreciate your time, man. I mean, you're a busy guy. You got a big team. You got 600 kids. You're a demanding wife. Just kidding. I love her to death.
I got a few kids.
You know, we had to carve this one out like a month in advance and kind of block things around and
Right.
you know move all kinds of stuff. So you know,
And then we
I know how
reschedule
busy you are. I know how valuable time is. So we appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course, man. So, you know, this is going to be perhaps the opposite of what we just did with Greg Tanner. I mean, Jim's got a different approach and, you know, different part of the country. Down south, they're all nice. They're cordial. Jim's in Baltimore, man. It's just, what you guys just got rated the dangerous city in America or something
Most
like that.
dangerous city in America, according to CBS. So,
So you're more like a cage fighter, LO. I mean, people don't just walk into your office at all.
no, zero walk-in traffic, that's for sure.
Oh, my God. So
Yeah, I'm actually just outside of Baltimore. I'm in Crofton. It's about 30 minutes away. It's a suburb of Baltimore, but
awesome.
yeah, close enough.
So, you know, I've met you in person and you know through marketing groups and coaching groups, and we've talked about your story. I've seen you tell the story before, and you don't necessarily have to go too deep, but I call this hangout rags to riches, and you know, I think it's a good time of year right now. Just making it through the winter is important to a lot of LOs. This winter, with rates going up 1% or 3/4 or whatever, a lot of LOs are just they're frustrated, they're stressed out, they don't know what to do with their
Right.
game plan, you know, and they perhaps got a little too high on the hog last summer. And you and I have both been there. I mean, you've seen this cycle and you've fought through it many times. And I love listening to you to tell how you kind of win these battles. So I'll just leave that question open ended, man. I mean, you can kind of go wherever you want with it, but you know, you haven't always been on top. I kind of feel like you're on top right now. You don't have to talk about how on top you are, but you know, how do you get from those low places to being on top like that? I mean, what keeps you going?
Yeah, gotcha. Well, first of all, like my background and where I come from and everything like that, we were very, very poor as kids. You know, my family was very poor growing up, you know, on welfare. We were homeless for a while. So, like, not having any money and, you know, failure has never really been too scary to me. Like, I've always been able to take risks because, you know, at the end of the day, I've been homeless before, so, and I got through it. So I'm never really worried about that. I'm a big risk taker, and I have been my entire life. And they haven't always been successful, you know, like you mentioned. So I'll just kind of like go back to, you know, I first got into the industry in 2001 down in Florida, and I worked for a subprime mortgage company, Aegis Lending, and you know, all I knew was subprime. I didn't even know what Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae. I didn't know what any of that was. All I knew was subprime mortgages. That's what I was taught, and did pretty well. You know, we did really well at that, and that's actually where I learned to become a manager and manage people and manage a group of people. They actually promoted me to being a branch manager when I think I was 23 years old. And at the time, I was the youngest branch manager in the company. They had like 85 managers nationwide. And they moved me to Lafayette, Louisiana, and I managed a branch out there for a year. The branch had been struggling and had lost money every month for a year, and they were considering closing it down. But they were like, you know, let's send this young, headstrong kid in there and see if he can turn some things around for us. So I did, and actually got the branch profitable, and we weren't tearing the doors off the place, but for being a little small branch in Lafayette, Louisiana, we did pretty well, and we made some money. But my agreement with them was to do that. You know, I wanted them to actually open me another branch in Florida after a year if I was able to make it profitable. So they did that, and they honored their agreement, and I ended up moving back to Florida, opened up a nice sized branch there, and you know, did pretty well in the subprime industry for a while. And then I decided I wanted to go out on my own. So in April of 2007, I officially opened my first mortgage company. It was a mortgage brokerage called Emerald Financial Group. If my cell phone calls you, the caller ID still comes up as Emerald Financial Group because I've had the phone number for that long and just never changed it out of a business account or anything. But that was a brutal, brutal, brutal learning experience for me. Very brutal. I put about $100,000 of my own money into starting the company, between getting everything done, the licenses, the whole 9 yards. I went really, really rich on the office and, you know, high class, so to speak. We were on a golf course in Heathrow Golf Course in Lake Murray, Florida. My rent was like $10,000 a month in the space there. Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, I went like all out, like big screens in the office and stuff like that. Like I
Yeah,
thought it
I
was
freak
boiler
out when
room.
my rent gets over like $800. Like, holy cow, dude.
Well, I have a pretty decently high rent right now. We're a little over 6 grand for the spaces that I have, but nowhere near the 10 that it was. But you know, I went all in, like all in with everything I had. And in July of 2007, anybody who's been in the industry that long, as you guys all know, like, dude, it was like Black Tuesday in here. Like mortgage companies just started closing up left and right, and I had, you know, 30 some loans in process at one mortgage lender, and they sent out an email, an alert: we're closed, like we're done, we're out of business, we're not going to be funding any loans. We had loans that had already closed, and we're in the rescission period, and they're like, we're not funding anything. I was like, crap, now what do we do? So we moved all those loans over to another place, and 2 weeks later they go out of business, and then I moved all the loans to another place, and meanwhile loans are just falling out because borrowers are getting pissed off and, you know, losing their patience. So you know, long story short, I think we had like 50 or 60 loans in the pipeline, you know, going into like June of 2007, and I think we maybe closed like a dozen of them, you know, if we were lucky. So I tried to like reinvent myself very quickly, and I tried to learn Fannie Mae and FHA, and the problem was then you had, you know, even those lenders, like they just started. I mean, I call it redlining. I don't know what they would call it. They would just, we're not lending in Florida right now. And I'd be like, well, how are you not lending in Florida right now? Aren't there laws against that? But what they would do, they just decided they just weren't going to renew their licenses, and that was their way to not lend in Florida, I guess. And you know, so it was kind of crazy. And long story short, I was completely bankrupt. I was 28 years old, and completely bankrupt. I didn't have a penny left to my name. My mortgage was a couple months behind in Florida. The builder went bankrupt in the neighborhood that I was in, and you know, they were selling my $450,000 house for $110,000 through the bankruptcy trustee. So I was 400% upside down on my house, and I basically just said, screw it, there's nothing I can do. So I ended up packing up my family and moving back to Maryland, where I had family, and you know, kind of where I you know, spent my formidable teenage years here. So I came back here that way, you know, at least my father could watch the kids while I found another job and went to work. Throughout that process, I actually, you know, went into like a deep depression, and I was drinking every day, and I just, you know, I couldn't get out of my own way, and it got to the point where I was actually ready to kill myself. So, you know, I felt that was the best option at the time, and felt like my wife and my children, they'd be better off without me. So, you know, it got to that point, like it was such a dark spot in my life. But, you know, looking back, like I'm glad I went through it. I learned so much from it. I went to work for a mortgage company here in Annapolis, and I really, really started to learn, you know, A-paper products. So I learned Fannie Mae, I learned Freddie Mac, you know, I learned FHA and Ginnie Mae, and learned all those things that I needed to learn. And I worked for them for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, I guess. Decided to leave that company and start up, you know, another company with a guy that also worked there. We kind of partnered up together, and we opened up a little shop, and it didn't really work out great for me at the time. I was still in a bad place, you know what I mean? I was still drinking every day. I was an alcoholic, and my heart wasn't in it. So, you know, I failed at that venture, and I ended up being unemployed for a little while, you know, for like, I don't know, 6, 8 months. I didn't work at all. But anyways, eventually I sobered up. You know, I got sober, and you know, tried to do everything I could to save my family and get back into things. And the thing is, like, you know, once I got like reinvigorated, and you know, I got my spirit back inside of me, it was like I was a whole new person, and I was literally willing to do anything to be successful this time. Like, it didn't matter if I had to work 150 hours a week. Like, I would do anything it took to be successful. So I got myself sober, got clean, ended up going to work for a bank, Eagle Bank. I worked there for a little while, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, something like that. And that was in like 2011, 2012, when, you know, rates had come back down, and we were starting to get busy again. And the guy that I worked for, he did a ton of direct mail. So I was basically just an inbound lead taker at that place. I didn't get paid a real large commission. Um, but I could close 30, 35 loans a month. Literally just answering the phone and just selling deals as they came in, beating the next guy down the road. I know it was a call center type environment, but what it did was it gave me some income back. It put me back. I made over $100,000 again that year, and I realized I can still do this. So that was kind of like stepping stone for me. I ended up leaving. They actually came in and closed my branch down because the vice president who was running our branch decided to go to a competing bank, and he decided he didn't want to be like a manager anymore. So he just wanted to go and do his own thing. He's very, very successful. He's always in the Scotsman's Guide and the top 10 lenders in the country. Great guy. I learned so much from him. But he decided to go to another bank, and suddenly I was out of a job. So the choices were: am I going to go back to work for a bank, another lender, go back to work for somebody else, or am I going to try and do this on my own again? So I chose the latter, and I decided to try and do it on my own. I partnered up with a local company, a small lender here, and I started up my own branch. And at first it was just me, a processor, and an assistant. And I was still doing a lot of the direct mail, most of the stuff that I learned from the other guy. So I was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on direct mail. Rates were still good. We could still close a lot of loans. And I was closing a ton of loans and making decent money. Well, then the rates went up. So at this point in time, the rates started going up, and here I was, basically a refi chop shop, for lack of a better term. And here I was, like, faced with a decision, like I had to reinvent myself again. So I decided to really learn. I think I maybe closed 4 purchases in my entire life prior to 2013, 2014 maybe. So I had to reinvent myself again. And I realized that, having a continuous book of referral purchase-based business is really the only way to make it through the winter. Like Game of Thrones, like winter is coming. Like we feel that every year in the mortgage industry, man, winter is coming. And just having like a good base of realtors that refer you business and consider you their go-to guy, like that's the only real way to make it through the winter, because we can't control rates. You know what I mean? Like we can't control what the interest rates are going to do, and if the refinances dry up because rates go up 1% like they just did in the last couple months, really the only thing that we can control is the referrals that we're bringing in, hopefully. And so when you have a purchase-based business, I realized that was the only real sustainable model. I was always really, really good at marketing myself and getting business and getting it in the door. But where I really, really struggled was with the paperwork aspect of it and the follow-up aspect of it. Like I'm a good salesperson, but man, when it comes to filling out all the paperwork correctly and getting it in, I'm not the guy. I had to hire an assistant just to do all my paperwork for me.
You're officially my soul animal as of right now.
I had to hire an assistant, man. I couldn't get all the work done was the problem. So like ADD, like squirrel, and off to the races doing something else kind of stuff. And God, I probably lost more business than I closed for that first year that I was on my own, because it was just lack of follow-up is really what it was. Like I didn't have the dedication necessary to do it. So what I did was, I decided to start hiring out anything that I wasn't good at. So the first thing I decided to do was I was like, look, I need to get some help. So I need to get some people that can do these things that I am not good at, and I can capture more of this business. So that's what I did. I would take the initial application and I would sell the loan, and then I was done with it after that. Like, my assistant that I hired, she's now one of my processors here. She's been with me for several years, and she would just take the loan all the way to closing from there. She was the assistant and the processor basically at the same time. So I kind of I started closing more and more loans. Real estate agents started giving me more business because I was closing loans and getting them done, and they knew that, if I approved a loan, it was going to settle. One thing I can say, if you're like a new loan officer, or even if you've been in the business for a little while, learn your guidelines. I've always been like a guideline guru, and that's helped me save so many deals in this industry. Underwriters, God bless their hearts, but they don't always know everything. And, loan officers change companies, underwriters change companies too. They may have had an overlay somewhere where they were before, but they don't even know it's an overlay because that's just the way that they were taught it. You know what I mean? So like the underwriters aren't always right. And, so I learned how to approach an underwriter and tell them they're wrong without pissing them off. It took me a long time to do. At the beginning, I used to piss them off all the time. And, I was known as that guy that would just fire back an email right away and have to go back and reread it later and go, oh, shit, what did I just do? But So I learned those things. I learned some self-control, but the guidelines, just being able to win every deal. What that allowed me to do was it allowed me to bottom feed a little bit and actually teach it to a lot of my loan officers now. You can go out to agents and say, look, do you have any turndowns that I can look at? Because you'd be surprised at how many, people get turned down by lenders because A, either they have overlays, or B, the loan officer just wasn't knowledgeable enough to actually get the loan closed and didn't think that they could do it. So that allowed me to bottom feed for a little while and start creating relationships with agents. And, after a while, I was able to get a bunch of loans closed for agents that no other lenders could, or at least their go-to lenders could. And then they started sending me more business. So it got to the point where I was, again, bringing in so much business that even though I wasn't doing the processing of it or anything like that, I was still working like 70 hours a week and just pulling my hair out. And I was literally driving myself crazy. I was making good money, but I was driving myself nuts. I'd gotten divorced from my wife, but I was in a new relationship, and I wanted to spend time with her in that relationship, and I didn't want to be working 70 hours a week. And I'm a big fan of the book The Secret. Like you put something out into the universe that you're looking for, and like the universe just finds a way to bring it to you, right? And I'm a big fan of that, and I truly, truly believe in it. So I basically, started talking to somebody, and I put it out in the universe. Look, I'm going to have to hire a loan officer or two just to deal with some of this business that I don't want to close. I didn't want to take applications at 8 o'clock at night, and I didn't want to take applications at 4 p.m. on a Saturday. I just didn't want to do those things anymore. So I was like, look, I need to hire a loan officer. And, man, the universe just found a way to put one in my life. A loan officer that worked at the same company that I was at. I was actually sharing a space with another branch manager, and that branch manager just never came to work. So, his loss was my gain, so to speak, because he had just brought a loan officer back into the business that had been out of the business for about 4 or 5 years, and he had just brought this guy back into the business. Well, anybody who was in the industry between '08 and 13, can you imagine like how many rules, how many guidelines changed in that 5-year period, right? Like everything changed. Like whatever you knew in 18, forget it. It doesn't apply to 13, right? Whatever you knew in '08, it didn't apply to 13. So here was this guy who was a hustler and bringing in business and had loans to close, and his manager was never there to help him. So he would always walk over to my office and ask me for help. And, I graciously helped him for, a long time. And then eventually he actually asked me if he could come work for me instead. So he did, you know what I mean? And he ended up coming to work for me. And that was like the biggest blessing that I could have had. And again, like I said, I put it out into the universe that I needed help. I needed a loan officer that could handle the business. This guy, is Jared Vogt. He works for me now. He is the most OCD, loan officer I've ever met. He's so meticulous and methodical. Like, he never misses a beat when it comes to paperwork and stuff like that. All the things that I was terrible at, he is phenomenal at. And then the things that he sucks at, like emailing an underwriter without making them want to burn your house down, I actually became pretty good at. So we were actually a pretty good team. And I decided I was going to go non-producing. I realized, my strengths are bringing business in. My strengths are not getting the business closed once it comes in. My strength was bringing the business in. So I realized that Jared could get anything closed that I brought in. And I was like, screw it, man. So I just decided to give him everything. So every single loan that I brought in the door went straight to him. And he was the loan officer of record and the whole 9 yards. And that's basically how I became a non-producing manager. I just realized I was better at that than actually closing loans and dealing with clients, face-to-face and things like that. So fast forward a little bit, we decided that we were going to scale and grow. We wanted to grow a team. So we ended up hiring a few more loan officers. And I actually want to talk about that for a bit because I think it can really apply and really help a lot of people, if you're deciding you want to grow a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, I've said it on posts before and told lots of people without maybe even tagging you that, to me, you have a history of hiring people and bringing them up to $100,000, in many cases for their first time, very, very quickly. Yeah. And to me, it's super impressive. You take people that are hungry, that are ready to work hard, but have never really seen success. And it's not like you give them a specific roadmap that works for everybody, but you give them some pretty strong structure and in a way that gets them moving and motivated really quickly. And I think that's what you're going to go into now. I didn't mean to interrupt you. But,
absolutely. I've seen you tag me, whenever somebody posts that they're looking to hire a new loan officer, and how do they get them up to speed? You tag me in that all the time, like talk to Jim Prince, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
I really appreciate that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really where my success has come from is my ability to bring in a loan officer with no experience. I just like to hire. I like to hire hungry salespeople that are good at sales and energetic and are going to go out and hustle. That mid 20 something year old that has a wife and children and really really wants to provide for them at the highest level possible, but the sales job that they're in right now, they may never see six figures because it's just not a six-figure industry kind of thing. And I like hiring those people. So when I find those people, I like to bring them in. And I do a few things differently than a lot of other places do. You have to understand if you're going to bring people in off the streets with no mortgage experience, you have to pay them for a while. You know what I mean? So I'll bring them in and I'll give them a salary, usually for at least their first 90 days. That way they're not starving. That's a big investment that I'm making in these people. You know what I mean? So I'll bring them in, I'll give them a salary for 90 days. I'll pay for all their education. I'll pay for all of their licensing. Even if they fail the test the first time, I don't make them pay for it the second time. I pay for it the second time. You know what I mean? Like I have their back 100%. And I've already made such a large financial investment in them that, they have to be successful or it was a big loss on my part. You know what I mean? So I really give everything I have into helping them grow and be successful. In addition to that, I never hire one person at a time. If I hire one person and I spend $15,000 over 3 months, paying for the licenses and giving them a salary and training and teaching them, and then either they just can't pass the test, they fail 3 times, or they realize that this industry really isn't for them. Like as soon as that salary goes away, it's sink or swim mode, and they sink and they're just like, look, I can't do this. Sometimes that happens. And if I only hire one person at a time and that happens, well, not only did I just waste $15,000, but I also wasted 3 or 4 months of my life, you know what I mean, that I can't get back now. So I like to hire at least 3 people at a time. This most recent round of hiring I did, I actually hired 5 loan officers, so 5 unlicensed salespeople basically to come in and be loan officers. And 3 of them have taken their test so far, and they all passed on the first try, and got another guy taking the test next week and another one taking it 2 weeks after that. So it's hard to get them all to start on the same day. It just never seems to work out. So it's kind of like I end up redoing some things, but for the most part, I'm making a big investment in them. In addition to that, I usually do that during the winter because we are slower. There's less work that I have to do, so I can actually spend more time on training them and getting them up to speed. So, in the months where we're not writing as many loans and the P&L is already suffering as a result of that, and then I'm taking on all these expenses for salaries and everything else, like that's a risk. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work out and we don't close enough loans to get through the winter, I might go belly up. So I'm always taking a risk. It's just been my style, but it's usually worked out, and I have it kind of dialed in right now. So if you're if you're trying to figure out, what can I do to grow my business and scale so the first thing you need to do is you need to get your systems in place and nailed down. I mean, your business has to be like on autopilot, and really that's what we did before we started growing like crazy. Is we got our system so nailed down that it was on autopilot. Like if I brought a deal on the door, I mean, I wouldn't even take the application anymore. I'd just say, hey, Jared, here's a phone number. Call this person. They want to get approved to buy a house. They came from such and such realtor. And then I wouldn't even have to follow up with him later. Hey, did you call them? I just knew that person was probably going to close 45 days from now. You know what I mean? Once they got approved, found a house, got under contract, et cetera. So, we got the systems nailed down in place. So then I was able to really, really focus my time on growing my business. And, that's what I've done. The only time I've ever hired a loan officer other than Jared that had experience was the only person that I've ever actually lost. He left and he took 3 people with him. So, you know what I mean? I'm like, that just kind of solidifies my thoughts that I really only want to hire people with no experience. But, excuse me. I actually just hired another guy that I've known for a couple years now and made him another sales manager of mine because I need more than one sales manager now at this point. So Jared's a sales manager for me. Chris Shenton is another one of my sales managers, and we're growing teams underneath of them. And it's been fantastic, man. We've grown over this winter, not counting the 5 new guys because none of them have closed a loan yet. They're not even licensed yet. With 4 less loan officers than I had last year, we doubled our business over the winter this year over last year. So I mean, I think that really, really shows a lot of positive growth going forward for the future. And I have, well, after these guys all get licensed, I'll have 12 licensed loan originators, and I'm forecasting to probably not this year because the 5 new guys are getting brand new up and running, but by 2019, I'm forecasting to do probably at least 150 million, maybe push the 200 million mark. The new guys are already like they're out marketing, they're doing Facebook marketing and things like that, and generating leads for us and whatnot. We just don't have them talking to the clients, taking the applications, doing the loan officer activities. So, but I already have them doing marketing for us and Facebook advertising and building on their own funnels and things like that, everything that they need to be doing to be successful and start gathering business and having leads to hand off. I try not to just hand leads off to real estate agents. I try to hand off pre-approved buyers. You know what I mean? So I'm teaching these guys how to do that. So when their license finally does get turned on, they can then have the conversations, with all the leads that they're bringing in, and then they can pre-approve the buyers and hand them off to agents and things like that. So, knock on wood a little bit. It's going well so far, man. And, we did a little over 80 million last year. I fully expect to do over 100 million this year. I hope to get to 150. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But I found that my model really, really works breeding loyalty, if you know what I mean. So, like, for one, my loan officers, they don't have to compete with me for business. I'm not out saying, no, you can't go into that real estate office. That's my office. I do all the business in there. You can't go in there. And that's some of the things that I've heard from other LOs and things like that. So, it's my job to grow their business. At the end of the day, my money's going to be there. If they're closing loans, my money's going to be there. So I worry more about what they're doing, what their paycheck is going to look like. Is there anything more that I can do for them in order to make them successful? Because, when you bring somebody in that's making $50,000 a year and you teach them how to make $150,000 a year or $200,000 a year, even though you may not pay the most on the street, they're not going to leave. You know what I mean? Like, it just breeds loyalty, and that's what I found so far. So, I got these guys that they're hungry, and I've taught them how to make money, and they all know without a doubt that I have their back. Like, their best interest is always at the forefront of my mind. Whatever I can do to make them successful. So.
What I really like, and you and I talked a little bit more about this one-on-one, is how, you realize there's a progression in that loan officer's career when it comes to marketing and selling. And you realize in the beginning they need more support from you as far as, leads and how to work the leads. Right. And yep. I mean, you teach them that. You teach them how to sell. You teach them how to market. In the yep. beginning, you don't just sit them in their seat and go, okay, well, now just dial a bunch of realtors and dial everybody you know and ask them if they need a loan. Good luck. See you tomorrow. Right. I mean, you say, okay, well, we have leads coming in from this source. I pay a lot of money for these. This is how they come in. This is how you contact them. This is exactly what you do. While you're doing this, we need to go back and start building your personal brand. This is how we're going to do it. These are the systems that you're going to use. This is what I'll do for you. This is what you need to do. I mean, you lay all this stuff out there, and you dive deep on, I'm just going to say it, what a lot of big companies and banks completely miss, which is teaching them how to be badasses at marketing and selling and building a personal brand. Yeah. I mean, you know how to do that yourself all day long, but your ability to communicate that to your team, I think, truly sets you apart. And get them excited about it as well.
That's exactly what we do. I mean, every Wednesday we train on something. I call it Winning Wednesday. Mm-hmm. And so we're training on something every single Wednesday, no matter what. And then anytime I get an opportunity to teach somebody something, like maybe something happened on a deal, good or bad, if I realize, look, that's a teaching moment and I need to get this out to, especially all my new people, then I'll either do a YouTube live recording real quick and send them out the link, or I'll just bring them all in the conference room if everybody's there that day, you know what I mean? So, like, I'm always teaching them. I'm always training because, at the end of the day, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more things you're going to be able to fix. That's the way that I look at it. So, I don't want them to be a jack of all trades, so to speak, but I want them to be really, really friggin' good at a whole bunch of things. You know what I mean? So, like, you don't have to be okay at everything, but I want you to be really good at most stuff at the end of the day. So that's kind of like, that's my goal with them. And it could be something as simple as, like, if somebody emails me or they come into my office and they ask me a question and it's a guideline related question, I don't answer it. I tell them, look, go sit back at your desk, Google it, log into AllRegs. We teach them how to use AllRegs and everything like that. I'm like, go find the answer and then come back to me with what you think the answer is and how you're interpreting it and what you think it means. You know what I mean? And then if they're wrong, then I'll I'll help them. I'll show them, give them examples and things like that. But most of the time, I teach them how to fish, man. I don't give them fish. I teach them how to fish, because if they just came in and said, hey, what do I do with this? And I just told them, they may not remember it next time because they didn't have to go and actually do the research to find it. But when I actually make them dive into the guidelines and find it, what I found is I end up getting less and less and less guideline related questions from these guys. Sorry. And my alarm to go pick up the boy from the bus stop. Somebody else is getting him today. So I get less and less guideline related questions and more like, hey, I got a meeting with a realtor coming up next Tuesday. How should I approach it? Kind of questions. And those are the questions that I want to be answering. You know what I mean? Those are the things that I want to teach them and work with them and just help them build their business. Just telling what the answer is on a guideline isn't going to help them build their business. But, so my time has been spent a lot better than it was in the past, put it that way.
Well, and a lot of the folks that have come on these hangouts, they're pretty much everybody I've brought on these hangouts is a multiple six-figure earner. And, you guys have a lot of things in common. And it's one thing I noticed right away, and you and I have talked about this before, your passion for the guidelines and for knowing, how to master your craft. And the other thing, I think Greg mentioned it a little bit earlier as well, is you're okay with trying pretty much anything that you find in the mortgage world that you think might help you or your team. And I think one of the first times I met you were talking about a program, and you're like, I'll throw $1,000 at anything, give it a whirl.
It was $29.97 actually.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll spend $3,000 on just about anything to see if it works.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's exactly what it was.
Good or bad, you're not going to cry over spilled milk or whatever, but try to use the things that are out there. Some people have never tried ever tried Zillow Leads. Some people never tried Realtor.com. Some people swear social media doesn't work and they've never bought a training program or even tried to run an ad.
I think when we met, I was spending about $40,000 a month on LendingTree
mm-hmm.
because I brought all these new loan officers in and I had to feed them. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
so we were feeding them and just giving them some stuff to work on. And over the course of time, I was able to get away from LendingTree, so I don't use it anymore. But I don't know, man. I got this new group of loan officers in now. I got 5 people who are going to be licensed and hungry, and I may fire back up the LendingTree leads. I know how to sell them. I know how to get them closed. So those are some things that we might do as well. But yeah, man, whatever I can do to help them close more loans. And I don't care what the cost is. I don't look at it as, oh man, that costs $10,000. I look at it as, well, if I spend $10,000, how much can I make off of it? You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I'll try just about anything. A lot of people are like, screw Zillow. I don't want to do Zillow. I have $20,000 a month in Zillow relationships right now. And you won't find my name on any of those Zillow relationships. It's all my loan officers. So you go to any of my loan officers' Zillow pages, and if you look and see who those relationships are, I'm paying for their Zillow, and I'm doing those things and supporting them to bring in the business. But you'll never see my name on any of it. I don't want to be at the forefront. I want to celebrate them and celebrate their successes. And, at the end of the day, I'm going to be successful. I'm going to make money. If they're making money, I'm going to make money. So it doesn't matter what it is. One of my loan officers came to me the other day, and he's like, yeah, this guy wants to do $2,500 a month on Zillow. And I was like, well, let's go meet with him, see what he's about. You know what I mean? So, and I'll probably do it. I'll give it a try for a couple months, see if we start getting business from him. If we don't, then I'll cut it off. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm not afraid to spend money. That's another thing that really sets me apart from a lot of companies and managers. When the business is starting to tighten up, they all tighten up their wallets. You know what I mean? And they zip the wallet up, you can't even get back into it. I'm like, screw that. Let's find something that's working right now, and we'll put money at that. We'll throw money at that. So, I kind of subscribe to the Warren Buffett attitude. Be fearful when people are greedy, and be greedy when people are fearful. So a lot of times, during the winter, that's when I experience my biggest growth. When people are afraid and they're tightening up their stuff and they don't want to spend any money on their LOs or help them market or anything like that because we're not bringing loans in the door, so we can't spend money. I welcome them with open arms. Hey, come on over here. So this year, I'm changing my model a little bit. I just started a relationship with Douglas Realty, who's one of the largest real estate brokerages here in the state of Maryland. I think they're number 2 or number 3 when it comes to total number of real estate agents. And I need people to service that business. And my brand new guys that aren't even licensed yet, they're not going to be able to do that yet. So I've just kind of changed up my attitude a little bit. I just started advertising. I'm looking for some experienced loan officers to come and service that business. You know what I mean? And so we'll see if that works or not. It may come around to bite me in the ass, and they may leave and take 2 or 3 people with them, like the last guy did. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? The needs of the business are the needs of the business, and I need some more experienced people to service. Our applications have actually doubled in the last month. From starting this partnership with them, and they're really doing a good job of pushing a lot of business in our doors. So I need people that can service it, and I don't want to be the guy that works 70 hours a week. I don't ever want to be that guy again, to be honest with you. I live a really, really good life right now. I don't even think I work 40 hours a week, to be honest with you. I'm probably about a 30, 32-hour a week guy, and I'm always available, text, phone calls, emails, etc. And I'll answer the phone for one of my loan officers at 10 o'clock at night, if I'm awake. But I'm not in here in the office, 40 plus hours a week anymore. It's not my life anymore, and I love it, man. I absolutely love it. So.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, and unless you got something else, we maybe end the call with this. But this is another thing I hear from a lot of these guys that are really uber successful is that working 30 hours a week doesn't necessarily make you lazy. When you're in there for your 30 hours, you're like intense and focused and like at this super high level, trying to figure out, okay, how do we do it better? How do we get this done? What does the team need?
Right.
What do we need to do to fix our system? What do we need to do to find better marketing? How can we fix these relationships? I mean, it's intense. To the point where when you're scheduling this call, you're checking everything. Like, hey, Fish, I got to be really careful. I don't want to miss this call or this, or
Right.
I don't want to miss the appointment with the baby, or with the wife. The babies are coming soon. All this stuff. I mean, it's you're laser focused. You're not like a lot of LOs. And I'll be honest, I make this mistake. They make that mistake that thinking because they were there for a few extra hours that they worked really hard that day.
Oh yeah.
I don't agree with that. I work really hard some days and I only work 3 hours.
Yeah.
There's days where I work 12 hours. I don't do shit.
I mean, if you worked 9 hours and you went out and took 6 smoke breaks and you stood at the water cooler and you talked about the sports game last night or whatever, I mean, did you really work 9 hours that day? So.
Our business is measured by results, simply.
Yep, absolutely.
Very simple. So if you didn't get the results, guess what? You didn't really work that hard.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate to say it that way, but
yeah. Oh, it is what it is. I mean, when I mentioned earlier, like, I have my systems down. That also includes my schedule. So like my loan officers, if they want, I teach a lot of classes and things like that. I'm actually teaching a military mortgage boot camp class next month to Douglas Realty.
Your boy, I think Shen's talking to us some point this afternoon. He's
nice.
He's ready to hop in.
Yeah, so I'm teaching one of those classes next month, but I teach a lot of classes to agents and things like that and to different brokerages. So like if one of my loan officers come and says, hey, I just talked to this agent and they introduced me to their broker and he's really interested in the classes that you teach and can we set something up? I direct them right to my assistant. My assistant keeps my schedule for the most part. I'll add personal things in like this. I consider this a personal thing, you know what I mean? So I made sure to add this on the schedule and then you went and changed it up on me. But we rescheduled
I know,
it.
dude.
No, it's all good.
I'm terrible.
But I work to that schedule. I absolutely live and work to that schedule. So, there may be some days where I come in the office. I'm usually in the office by about 7:45 in the morning, and there may be days where I don't leave until 6 p.m. But there may be another day in the week where I don't come in at all.
Full disclosure, I canceled you because I had an opportunity to go to Texas, eat steak from like a gourmet chef, and shoot rifles.
Nice. That's awesome. So yeah, no, I'm not mad at you for that at all. But no, I live by the schedule. You know what I mean? So like my schedule is very, very regimented, and I live by it. So like my classes, like when a broker says, hey, can you come in and teach a class to us next Wednesday? I'm just like, no, not at all, because my schedule is usually pretty full for 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time now, and we've done a good job of that. And that also came from setting the expectations with my LOs. Also, like, look, don't tell the broker I can come in and teach a class next week because I can't. Like, and even if I do happen to have room on my schedule that day, I'm going to tell you no because I don't want you to get in the habit of trying to schedule a class for me a week from today because next week I might have 17 different things going on. There's, you know what I mean? So I usually get them in the habit of trying to schedule these classes 2 to 3 weeks in advance. It gives the, it makes the broker think, wow, this guy's like really busy. Like he can't even come teach this class for 3 weeks. He must be doing a lot of these, that kind of stuff. So it gives them that perception, and I just noticed that it's kind of giving me more clout, honestly, when I'm like, no, actually, the first available day I have is Wednesday, March 14th, you know what I mean, or whatever the case may be. So that's really worked out. But then it allows me to plan for it better and things like that. So Dude, my favorite days are when I just get to go out, teach a class to a couple agents. By a couple, I usually mean there's usually at least a dozen people in these classes. I really, really try and get the brokers to advertise it to their people and get people in the seats kind of thing. So my favorite days are when I get to go out, teach a class to a real estate agents, give them some lunch, chat with them for a little bit afterwards, and go coach high school football after that. Like, you know what I mean? That's my life. So
Love it, dude.
cool, man.
Love it. Well, hopefully we inspired a few of you guys. I mean, we started out with Greg and went full circle with Jim. Both of them are crushing it in their own respects. Two completely different models.
Absolutely. Polar opposites.
But there's a lot of ways to win in this business, and we also try to tie in what the best people are doing. And you can see that there's so many similarities between these guys today and a lot of the people we've met all over the country. So we appreciate your time. Hopefully I'm going to be coming out to Baltimore at some point soon to do a little bit more face-to-face with TJ. We'll try to hitch up.
Wow. Yeah, man, absolutely. Love to see you guys. We'll get together. I live like an hour and a half from TJ, and I've seen him like twice in 4 years, I think. So it's just one of those things. Like, man, if I could leave everybody with like one last piece of advice, if you want to grow, you want to scale, work to your strengths and delegate and source and like outsource your weaknesses. That's the biggest thing that worked for me. Realizing the things that I was not good at and paying someone else to do it. Someone that was good at it, paying them to do it. That was the best way I was able to grow. You know what I mean? And I experienced the fastest growth. And it doesn't matter if you're trying to start a mortgage team and you want 4 loan officers working underneath of you. I mean, it could just be as simple as, look, you're doing 12 loans a month right now and you want to know how to get to 25. That's how you get to 25. Take your strengths and focus on those. And whatever you're not good at, outsource it. Pay someone else to do it. Hire an assistant.
I call that the football coach mentality, and I agree with that 100%.
Absolutely, man. I've heard people say, well, I can't really afford to hire an assistant right now. And I'm like, well, if you want to get to 20 loans a month, you can't afford not to.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's really what it is at the end of the day. So outsource your weaknesses.
I struggle in this business. I'm a golfer, and I have the opposite, which that works in the bank world. You have to be good at everything, every product, every part of the process.
Right.
That's like a golfer mentality. It's only you out there against the world in the course. But I find guys like you, the football coach mentality. I mean, you are a football coach.
I am a football coach. Yeah.
There's different people in different positions, and
South River Seahawks, Edgewater, Maryland.
Yo, I love it, bud.
We had workouts today. I'm getting ready to go lift some weights with the kids.
Oh, you're taking some flack on Facebook from Robert about the Seahawks gear already.
Nice.
Cool, bud. All right, man. We appreciate you, Jim. Appreciate your time. Hopefully we can socialize a little bit more, and
Absolutely.
maybe we can bring more content to help you and your team as well. So
hopefully, I appreciate it, man. I've been referring some people over to you. And one of my new guys, Will Camacho, he's in one of your groups now, and Shenton's been talking about mortgage boot camp and all that stuff. Like, man, I try and throw business your way whenever I can, and I tell my people, like, if you're not going to invest in yourself, why do you expect me to? You know what I mean? So like, I want them to invest in themselves as much as possible. You got a lot of your people doing stuff,
and the social media classes and all that, and it's good stuff, man. We appreciate your support.
Cool. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course, bud.
Even if you did bring me on after Bon Jovi.
I know it was kind of like that lineup. I know Greg it's like smooth jazz from the South.
He is. He's got that voice, you know what I mean, and just the best voice in radio.
I know.
I love Greg. Greg, if you watch this, love you, brother.
Peace out, guys.
All right, take care, Fish. I'll see you later, bud.
See you, bud.